We really do like to shit on the journalistic class in this show, but I mean, really, they make it so easy for us. It's difficult not to. The latest is from Peter DeToy, deputy editor of Propaganda 24, asking the question, why is Jacob Zuma so popular? He just cannot understand it.
Yeah, it's not complicated. He's literally a martyr. And as Crown Prince Adil once said to us, the black population do love a good martyr. His words, not mine. So if you want to cancel him, go for it. It's not my words. That being said, Jacob Zuma was the villain. Let us not forget New Dawn and all that stuff. But it would now appear that possibly Jacob Zuma wasn't as much of a villain as he was portrayed, and therefore he's a victim. And victim culture does reign supreme.
Very much so. And I think it's very important that people understand we are not a European nation. We are an African emerging market. People vote for different things here than they do elsewhere. So when you have a European mindset like Peter DeToy, very little actually does make sense in South Africa. But if you actually speak to people on the ground, Jacob Zuma is wildly popular for a number of reasons. Number one, he actually had power. He was the president. During that period of time, things were better than they are right now. There was less load shedding. There were more jobs. There were a variety of things that made life a lot better for the ordinary people on the streets. Cyril Ramaphosa destroyed all of that. So just based on that alone, it's not surprising Jacob Zuma is so popular.
Yes, now the other reason that Jacob Zuma is really popular is because he's a Zulu, and he's popular with Zulus, who want a Zulu kingdom, and actually arguably are far more nationalistic about the Zulu nation than the Western Cape. Now, why is that important? Well, because Zuma loves to go out and promote tribal leaders and tribal thinking, for want of a better word. In other words, what he really wants to do is he wants to have a degree of African law. Well, that kind of feeds into a national identity for Africans, specifically for black Africans. Black Africans that may have felt disenfranchised by Roman Dutch law. That makes sense. So that's why he'd be popular. There is a degree of, let's call it, tribalism or ethno-nationalistic type feelings with Zulu individuals, specifically, which Jacob Zuma tends to embody. It shouldn't be that much of a surprise that those type of individuals gravitate toward the charisma that is Jacob Zuma.
And a lot of people forget he is deeply, deeply charismatic. So Peter DeToy does write that Jacob Zuma has been a wrecking ball, state capture, and he pillaged the institutions and blah, 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 blah. Yes, maybe. Okay, this is what happens in African countries. Nothing new under the sun. More importantly, Cyril Ramaphosa has done far worse. He's also pillaged the institutions, also put his own people into institutions in this country to protect him. Hint, hint, the new public protector and Edward Kieswetter and the MPA. All of those are his stooges, which protected him from the Pala Pala scandal, just by the way. And Jacob Zuma has come out on the record and said, listen, I haven't stolen a needle. His words, not mine. He hasn't stolen a thing. He hasn't been found guilty of any crime whatsoever, which is correct, as far as I know. The only thing he's been found guilty of is not going to the Zondo Commission, which, ironically, Koos Becker didn't go either. So Koos Becker, who owns Naspers, was also summoned to the Zondo Commission, and he didn't actually go. But he didn't go to jail for that. Interesting that only Jacob Zuma went to jail for that. But in essence, the victimhood of Jacob Zuma is what makes him so popular. He has done things and has been punished for it, whereas a lot of other people have done exactly the same things and haven't been punished for it. People can see the double standards in real life, and Jacob Zuma is using that to gain a lot of power. Another reason for his popularity.
Yes. Now, if you really wanted to discredit Jacob Zuma, you'd basically try him, convict him, stick him in jail, and then go, see, he was determined by an independent court that he was a bad guy. But it's never happened. Let us not forget that the infamous arms deal was how many centuries ago? And this ultimately is, as we've said on the show many times, the chicken's coming home to roost. I mean, this is basically Cyril's own making. So Cyril can't complain that he has made a martyr of Jacob Zuma. and a martyr they have made. And let's face it, Ramon, there's nothing more than the local population love to enjoy than a good martyr.
Indeed, and even in the arms deal, right? He's been accused of taking 500,000 rand from an arms company, a French one. 500,000 rand. That's like really pitiful, even in 1996 rand terms. Jacob Zuma Cyril Ramaphosa had how many dollars in the couch? $1 million? We still don't know, actually. Some say $4 million, some say $1 million. He had far more money in cash in a foreign currency in his own couch than what Jacob Zuma is accused of receiving as a bribe from a French arms company. So even if Jacob Zuma is corrupt, even if he did take bribes, they're so small compared to what other people in the ANC have taken that it's almost pathetic to try to convict him of it. It's almost like there is a particular persecution of the former president of South Africa. I know, controversial, but ironically enough, that's what he needs to tell people because that's why they will support him. He's being persecuted for just being himself.
Yes, but let us not forget, as we've said, if you wanted to go against anything Jacob Zuma said, if you wanted to go against the grain and the narrative, you convict him. You'd send him to court. You'd try him. You'd put him in jail. All of these things the ANC have protected him from. In which case, every news headline that comes out talking about how corrupt Jacob Zuma is, his response will always be the same. Why am I not in jail? Why am I not in court? Why am I not convicted? He's 81. He's been in positions of authority for some years, nearly 20 years. So all he'd have to say is, prove it. You can't just go, trust me, bro. You'd have to say, prove it. And every time he says, prove it, you'd go, well, I can't. In which case, he would argue very successfully, and is what he does argue very successfully. It's all propaganda, and it's propaganda aimed at him, because he is the vanguard of the masses. He is the tribalistic national chief. He is the head of the table. But you know what? Everybody's trying to hold him down. Look at all the propaganda that goes out against him. What have you got to say that he's wrong? And the answer is nothing.
And fundamentally, the reason why the journalistic class hates Jacob Zuma is because he doesn't give a shit about your little constitution. He doesn't give a shit about your liberal human rights laws and things like that. He wants to send unmarried women to Robben Island, for goodness sake, for having children as teenagers. This is a man who represents the will of the people in the truest sense of the word. He's not our guy, right? I'm not a Zulu. I'm not going to vote for him at all. But at least we try to understand why people will vote for him. It's a pity that we are trying to do that, but the journalistic class in this country cannot fathom why this man is so popular.
Yeah, and let's face it, Ramon, as a concluding statement, the reason that the journalistic class cannot understand why Jacob Zuma is so popular is because they're a bunch of libtards who live in bloody the Western Cape and have never actually seen what true South Africa looks like. They live in gated communities with armed guards everywhere, and they live little luscious lives where they shop at Woolworths and never go outside of their comfort zones. That's not who Jacob Zuma represents. It's not the people who Jacob Zuma talks to. So until they actually get out of the Western Cape and go and actually speak to, basic human beings in this country, it's going to contend to be a mystery to them, but a mystery to no one else. We all live in the real world. We all understand why Jacob Zuma may have an appeal. As you rightly say, Ramon, it's not our guy. We're probably not going to vote for him. Maybe. But who knows? At the end of the day, we still understand him, and understanding him is half the battle.